Perfect. Matt, you get the first one up.
All right, sounds good. So just weekly update on the engineering allocation. Like the last few weeks, I've been putting the status in the Epic there, so you can always follow along there. But the highlights now are we're down to one InfraDev issue, and there's a MR for that, so we're getting pretty close on closing that one out. And then just as in the last hour or so, our error budgets switched over to be green, which is great. We were pretty close. This, like I said in Slack, this is kind of a combination of some of the work we did around, there's some caching work, which helped. We removed some data from a call a couple weeks ago, that helped. But also we kind of changed how we're measuring it. So that definitely impacted this a lot. So for now, we're green and good. That coming up, that's going to be changing again, how we measure it. So I can share the Epic around that, but the idea is that each endpoint would be configured on how fast we expect it. So I don't know timing on that or anything, but that'll be kind of the next iteration of error budget work that we'll do. Yeah, any questions about any of that?
I think logically we would expect to go red again when each endpoint gets their own threshold, because we'll probably have some back to like some sub 1 second thresholds.
Yeah. Yep. So we'll have to look. I think, yeah. The idea is, yes, that we wanted to first switch everyone to 5 seconds. So then we can really focus as a company, focus on like, okay, which areas are really the worst, or not the worst, but really need the most attention. And then, yeah, then start tuning it. And then each team can kind of iterate and slowly improve kind of the slowest queries and make those better. The problem with 5 seconds now is that while most of our requests happen much faster than that, now if a lot of them start taking 4 seconds, we probably won't notice it because our measurement is, our threshold is so high. But that's kind of a temporary problem that we'll kind of have to watch for.
Do they expect, it's going to get really messy. In theory, we will come out of engineering allocation soonish, right? Because we won't have, our error budget will be good and we have no InfraDev issues. And so therefore we come out of, supposedly we would come out of engineering allocation. Is the like thought that like we would end up back in engineering allocation once they start like changing these versus like letting teams sort of naturally address these, or have they not really decided yet? Or are they not going to let people out of engineering allocation until they've got version 2 of this? Do we know yet?
No, I don't think that, sorry, my dog's going crazy. I don't think that us being in an engineering allocation is dependent on this new change rolling out. So yes, in theory, we should be able to get out of our current engineering allocation shortly. But then, right. So we're still trying to figure, I know the question will be like, when will that happen? And I'm trying to figure that out. The other complicating thing around the engineering allocation is everyone, pretty much all the backend engineers are either in an engineering allocation or a headcount reset / the new term is swarm. So if we want to be careful about like, if we come out of an engineering allocation, I don't want the whole team to have to swarm over to some other team and work on their stuff. But that kind of gets to my next point about planning and 14.4. So I'll just kind of roll into that and we can cover them both at the same time around. I tried to prioritize performance, security, some of the reliability stuff, because we still have a lot of that to work on, including there was like a P1 bug that we need to address. I don't know, I think there's over 100 performance issues in our backlog. Not all are high priority, but we have a lot to do in that area. So I think as long as we keep working on our own performance and things, that's kind of why I prioritized some of those to keep us focused, because the goal for all of this is reliability and improving that. So, and I think the mergeability stuff falls into that category, which is stuff we wanted to do anyway. Yeah, so I don't want to be, totally selfish and be like, nope, we can't work on anyone else's high priority work, which is what a lot of other teams are having to do right now. But I think we have enough high priority performance and security fixes and things that we need to do on our own that not necessarily related to the current engineering allocation. That I'm hoping that we can, if we transition out of the engineering allocation, we can transition into okay, but now we have all this other reliability stuff that we have to focus on for ourselves. Sorry, that's just my rambling about engineering allocations and where we are right now. Does anyone have thoughts or questions on that?
No, I think that makes sense. I think it's probably a valid concern that if we came out of an allocation, our engineers would go somewhere else.
Yeah, and that's what we've seen with like the editor team, I think, is working on managed plan. I think the ecosystem backend engineers are helping on different teams. So if you look at the engineering allocation handbook page, that table of which teams are impacted is pretty much every team. So every team is impacted at least somewhat, I think, now by this. So if we can continue to focus on reliability and these quality issues, but do it for our own team, I think that would be ideal.
Cool. I don't have any questions on number
yeah.
2 either. I haven't taken a thorough look at it, so I
Yeah.
might piggyback on some of them.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. And if we need to switch things around a little bit, I'm totally okay with that. I just took we also have a couple people taking weeks off during this milestone, so our capacity is lower than usual to begin with. So basically we had twice as much already in 14.4 than we had capacity for. So I just had to try to prioritize things and then just cut everything below that off somehow. But if we need to rearrange things, I'm certainly open to that. So that's why I put in the planning issue. I also listed out all the ones that were in there that I moved out. So if we want to review those and switch any of those, we can certainly discuss that. Yeah, I think at some point we should probably go through our whole backlog of performance issues and make sure they're prioritized or have the right priority and severity label on them, so we can kind of think about those as well. There's, I think there's 110 or something, and then there's 10 or 15 security issues in our backlog. So we should make sure those are accurate and labeled accordingly. All right, cool. Let me know if you have async. We can discuss if people have thoughts or questions too. All right, Pedro.
Hey, sorry about that. I had my point as the first one in the gen, I think, but then I was in the subway. But I'm here now. Anyway, I wanted to talk about, because we have been going on and on about this in the issue, and I wanted to reach a decision quickly on if it's something that we're going to do soon or not. In the context for this issue, for anyone that is not familiar with, the idea is to display a prompt in the product on the merge request page that would allow us to potentially capture as accurately as possible user sentiment towards primarily merge request performance. But then also, of course, we would take advantage of that opportunity to also capture user sentiment towards merge request experience in general. And user sentiment about GitLab's experience is something that we do at least on a quarterly basis with the SUS surveys that capture the users' perception of usability and their experience, but that's for the whole product. And this would be much more targeted, just the merge request experience, and we would ask them specifically about merge request performance and merge request experience in general. And yeah, these kinds of prompts in product have had good results in the past in other companies. It's a very common approach used by Google, for example, not only when they release new products, but when they keep improving products or make or are about to make big changes or big new features in the products. They have the baseline and then they compare user sentiment if it went up or down, if people are more or less satisfied with the experience. Anyway, that's the context, and I think, yeah, most importantly, it's about the effort that this would take. And right now, ideally, we would have a kind of a banner or a dialogue, a non-modal dialogue that would appear to prompt users to participate in the survey if they want, and it could, be dismissed. Ideally, that banner would contain some data about the users so that they wouldn't have to self-report on, for example, how long they have a GitLab account, or if they are part of a paid plan or a free plan, or how often do they use merge requests. And yeah, having people self-report on that is not ideal, but it will, I think, reduce effort significantly if we just, hey, here's a link to the survey, and then ask people there those questions, and they self-report on those characteristics. And yeah, I think in terms of urgency, this is, I think, similar to any kind of tracking. As quick as we can get this data, the quicker we can have a baseline and the quicker we can make some decisions based on it. So yeah, that's a little bit about the context. Specific questions that people have.
And we've talked about this a lot in the issue. I don't disagree with wanting the data or doing it. I think at this point, it's now a question of effort, right? Whether or not we have the required parameters that we're looking for to be able to construct the URLs pre-populated with the data that you want versus trying to get people to self-select. And that's probably, I think the question is like, how big of a deal is that? Because if that's a big deal, I don't know if we could do that in 14.4 without someone looking at it, today. The alternative would be we could probably put a banner in a relatively small amount of work if we just were linking to something, right? And didn't have to add anything.
Yeah. I asked Anne about that, our UX, one of our UX researchers, and she said that she would rather not ask people those questions about how long they've been using GitLab, or how often do they use merge requests, because it's more difficult to answer. So yeah, it would be more difficult for us to read the data and make something out of it. Also because we wouldn't be able to tell, for example, if someone says that their experience their perception of performance of merge requests, they're not satisfied with it, we wouldn't be able to tell if that person is a very recent user or if they have been using that for a long time, and that changes how we interpret their answer. But I think it's still worth doing, and we can iterate our way there. The most important, I think the most basic things would be, as you said, just display a link to a survey and users can dismiss it. If they dismiss it, we won't show it that link again for, I don't know how long, but I would say at least maybe a year perhaps, or something like that. And that it would have to be behind the feature flag so that we could enable it on SaaS, and it would not appear on self-managed because we want to, at this time, only do that in SaaS. I still think it's worth doing, but again, it would make the interpretation of the data much harder, and it could be an excuse for us to not use the data because we don't know what kind of people are answering it. We just know that they're users of SaaS, basically.
Okay. I have to finalize planning for front end this week. I think that makes sense. I think it sounds like I would hate to put the survey up, get people to respond, and then not be able to use the data because we probably only get one shot at getting those people to like do the survey, if we even get, sort of the interactions anyways. It seems like this data and then drawing the conclusions we need is without the data would be a challenge. So I think we just need to push for what we can get there. I will work with Andre on that. We'll have to finalize front end planning. I guess before the end of this week, now that I look at a calendar. I will put a note to like put this in, and maybe what we do during 14.4 is maybe we just turn that into a spike for someone to investigate what we have around there in data, and then what it would take to get sort of all of the required data, and then we can come back and make a more informed decision late 14.4 or 14.5 of like actually going through with it. I honestly don't know if I sort of, based on what I know about fulfillment and subscriptions, I actually don't know if any of that information is readily available in the GitLab code base in like an easy to consume way. So it may be hard to get some of that. So we may need to like rethink some of that. But yeah, I think that's probably the best we can do for now, which delays us another month plus, right, on starting anything. So we may need to look at what the effect of just sort of how we were thinking about UX and research is for the quarter anyways.
I think that's fair, and a spike is reasonable. That would already make me happy to know that we're looking into it. And yeah, for example, this kind of data would have been tremendously helpful to drive home the results that we've made with the performance improvements, to see like the numbers say, yes, we did it, or we made huge improvements, what the users feel about it. But anyway, that would be if we had implemented it. But going forward, I think, yes, as soon as we can have something like this, it would be good. And also to understand if it's worth investing more in this kind of approach, depending on the data that we have. But if the initial data, as you say, it's already a bit hard to interpret, it would make even harder for us to make a case to continue investing in it. So it would be okay to do a spike. I'm comfortable with that. But again, I just want to bring this up to set some expectations, because this is something that I want us to do, but I'm aware of all of the constraints that we have at the moment. So yeah, it's just balancing priorities, Kai, I think. It's what you do best.
Yeah, I think we can do that. So I created an action in the agenda, so we'll do that.
Thank you.
Amy, you've got the last one, which is read only. So enjoy your trip. That sounds, I'm jealous, but enjoy your trip.
Planning on it.
Photos, please.
Take a look at the link. You may hate me a little.
Oh my God, just the Google Docs preview. I didn't open the link. I just clicked and it opened, the photo of the place.
Yeah, about 8 months ago, I said, I don't care what it costs. Gimme. So I'll be gone for a while. Pedro, I put that in there because of the discussion we were just having. If you need me to do a language edit, I'm available up until that Friday, and then I go away.
Awesome. Thank you, Amy.
Cool. All right, that's it for me.
I did want to jump back up, Matt. You mentioned the performance issues and the security issues, and I pulled the list of performance issues. You're right, it's 110. Many of them are like 3 and 4 year old issues. Like one in particular is that it's 3 years old and it just says slow front end rendering of merge requests. I feel like I could probably confidently close it given like all of the improvements we've made. I guess the question is, do you think it makes sense to potentially have like every engineer draw like some number of these per week and just go through and close them? I imagine in many cases we could close them, or they're duplicated for other things, and duplicates will be harder to find, but we could probably close a tremendous number of these, or they don't even make sense. Like one was sort of like about only cache this thing if this other thing is happening. And I'm like, I bet the logic of like the whole application has changed in the last 4 years that like this is not relevant anymore. And that might be like a useful thing to do during maybe during 14.4. Like I know we sometimes look for smaller issues to fit in when people have like waiting on merge request reviews or other things, but maybe for 14.4 we sort of get the in your free time try and close out some of these issues so we can have a realistic picture here.
Sure.
If you could.
Yeah, we could try to figure out how we can coordinate that. But yeah, I think that makes sense because, right, I figured there were either duplicates, and yeah, I saw some of those really old ones. That's like, well, that's probably true for not just performance issues in our backlog, that we have probably a lot that are old and could be closed. Which is a whole separate topic, but yeah, so that might be a good thing to do, to go through there to see. It would be great if we had a list that we were confident was accurate and prioritized, and then that would make it so much easier to go through like a planning process to say, and to share with external stakeholders of like, here's all the performance things we know we have to do, and yeah, so we can coordinate that and figure that out async, I think, but I don't know how we would do that. But I'm sure we can figure out some lightweight way to arrange that.
Yeah, I think the key would be making sure we don't investigate or try and fix anything. It's purely like glance at the issue description. Does this seem reasonable or not reasonable? If it seems unreasonable, then just let's err on the side of closing things. Like let's just sort of more optimistically close, I think is probably the way I would say that. And then if it is, something that we should do or could revisit, then like at least we still have it. That way we cut this list pretty quickly. Because just in looking, the bulk of them are 3+ years old. So we've clearly addressed like, I think recent items. And honestly, the last touch date on a lot of these is 9 months ago when we bulk relabeled And that's the reason they show an updated date and like in the last 9 months. Otherwise, they weren't even touched prior to that. So it was the bulk relabel from source code to code review that actually even triggers some of these being remotely relevant. So I think that might be a useful thing to do during 14.4 if we can just have people try and prune that list.
Sure. No, that makes sense. All right. Yeah, that sounds great.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thanks everyone. Enjoy the rest of your week and enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. And yeah, have a good one.
See you, everyone.